Hello and welcome to Global Sanctuary for Elephants podcast, Global Rumblings. Global Sanctuary for Elephants, or GSE for short, is a non-profit organization with a mission to create vast safe spaces for captive elephants where they are able to heal physically and emotionally, often from very traumatic pasts. I'm your host, Nadia Mari, and I'll be taking you to the lush jungle of the Mato Grosso region in central Brazil, home of GSE's initial project, Elephant Sanctuary Brazil. Currently home to 6 female Asian elephants, lovingly referred to as the girls. Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us again this week on Global Rumblings. On today's episode, we'll be talking a little bit more about Rana and Maia after Guida had passed, and then also beginning to talk about the sanctuary's 4th elephant, Ramba. So let's head on over to Brazil. Hello, Kat. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Hi, Nadia. We're good.
Hey, Nadia.
A little delirious, but that's not that much out of the ordinary, so no big deal.
Are you very busy? Well, you're always busy, but obviously more busy.
Are we busy?
Always.
Always.
We don't know which direction to run so many times. It's so much, too much happening at the same time. But that's sanctuary life.
That's sanctuary life. Well, yes, with 6 elephants and all your rehab animals to look after. So
we
let's
actually
talk.
have 2 less. We have too few. We have too few because they flew away. And it's a good kind of fly away. We had 2 jandaias, which are small parrots, a little bigger than a parakeet.
Okay.
Both arrived at different times, and they both ended up being about the same stage for release. We put them in together for a few weeks in the same aviary, and they immediately were side by side.
Yep.
And they were opened up their flight cage a couple days ago, and they stayed inside the flight cage for I think about 24 hours, maybe 36 hours, eating on the little tray that is the exit, and then they took off. So
yes, their friends came and got them. They had a big party with I don't know how many, maybe 12, 10 of them, and then they all left together. So
How sweet.
Yep.
So the flight cages are in operation. They're finished.
yeah, we have 2 small ones that are in operation, and we have a resident owl who's going to be moving into his flight cage. He's not ready to fly. He is ready to start hopping around though. So a young owl, he's going to go. He's very young.
He's still fluffy.
Oh, wow. It's all go with you guys.
That is the speed. That and sleeping. Those are Scott's 2 speeds.
On and off, intermediate sometimes without a coffee. We stopped or ended last week's episode with hearing about how Rana behaved very compassionately towards Maia after Guida had passed, with putting her needs aside and being there for Maia on Maia's terms and putting what Rana wanted aside. And you had said that Rana, Guida and Maia never really became sort of the best friends that everyone, including myself, had hoped for. But it's the same with humans. You can't be best friends with everybody. But Rana learned her lesson and became the elephant that she is today, the welcoming committee to all the elephants that have arrived since. So maybe how did the months unfold Guida's passing? Because it wasn't actually that long before then your 4th elephant came, Ramba, in October 19, and it was June 19 that Guida unexpectedly passed away. So maybe, yes, what happened? And I mean, Ramba will talk a lot about her, obviously, but take it away.
Well, I think correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we already do an introduction to Ramba when we were talking about after leaving Tennessee, and then we helped move Ramba from the circus?
I know we didn't talk about that story because that's like a whole big story unto itself.
And that's going back in time, though?
Yes. That's going in reverse.
We had talked about Ramba, and then after you left Tennessee, that she was actually the elephant that brought you back into the elephant world. Chile's last... it's Chile. I keep on saying Chile like it's a German version. Chile. So Chile. Chile is the correct pronunciation. Chile, like it is in Germany at the moment. No, I'm getting distracted. So yes, we did talk about her and that she was confiscated and that she was then at the side of an amusement park and waiting for you to find the land, which took some time. But when you did, she didn't come straight away. So much to talk about why it took so long for Ramba then to finally to come home to you in 2019.
I think there's a lot to discuss with all of that. It's a really involved story.
Yeah.
I think for the sake of for our listeners' benefit, I think we can go into a little bit about how we recognized Hana's changes when Ramba arrived.
Yeah.
Because I think, we're to keep on the same trajectory of elephant growth and evolution of what it means to be a friendship. I mean, what it means to be a friend and what it is to have friendship. It was really fascinating. And I think we saw more than any other time is after Ramba arrived, we got to see how much Hana knew, how much Hana had learned about what it means to be there for another. And what it means to walk slowly with new introductions, what it means to listen to the comfort of another. And a lot of that came through Maya, through being there for Maya, through perceiving that, Maya was in pain, through her own grieving process, even though she wasn't best friends with Hana. Even though Hana wasn't best friends with Guida, she still had her own grieving process as still another member of the herd and a big, powerful energy that Guida was, that was no longer. And it was palpable everywhere throughout the sanctuary that Guida wasn't here. So there's a lot that had transitioned during that time. Exactly how to define that is impossible.
Yeah.
I know it was impossible during that time, but all of that seemed to put Hana in a beautiful place for the next arrival. And for every arrival subsequent to that. I mean, she is the one that is there, ready to be malleable to whatever it is that each elephant needs when they come in.
And that's part of when you think about Hana stories, there, of course, is the initial, but then there's kind of a little void until later on, because so much of who she is defined by how she is with other elephants after Maya and Guida.
Hana is a beautiful friend, and she is incredibly influential just because she's Hana, just her energy. And I don't know if we mentioned this here, but when Mateus when he starts working with her, he said she grounds him. And just by doing the normal treatment, he's not doing anything, unique or profound. It's just doing her treatment, but she has a grounding effect. She has a very calming effect on everybody that, helps everyone just reconnect with what life is really all about. And I think that goes back to the thing we talked about with Hana, with her interactions. It is, she wants to see you. She wants to look at you. She wants to have that grounding moment, that interconnected moment. And she has that with everybody, whether you really want it or not. She kind of pries your heart open and again, forces you to expose yourself in a way that it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. So when Ramba came, Maya still wasn't super open. She was still hurting. She still preferred her own time, definitely more social with her humans by that point, not the silly Maya she had been in the past, but better. But Hana was still doing her hanging out in her general space. And then Ramba came and Hana...
Everything changed.
Hana found the love of her life. No, I don't know that that's necessarily true, but Hana loved...
In the moment.
Yes, in the moment,
true.
absolutely. But I still think Hana loved Ramba in a way that I don't think I've seen her with anybody else since.
Yeah.
But it must have come from Ramba as well. Did it come from Ramba as well?
Ramba was a little bit indifferent initially. It's not that she didn't want it, but Ramba is a very independent elephant.
Yes.
And she, even with her caregivers, when she didn't have anybody else in Chile, just her caregivers, she was sometimes still indifferent. She liked her people. She was very tolerant, but she wasn't overly affectionate.
No, oddly enough, the one time we saw her be super open and receptive to affection, and that way was the first time we were with her after she had moved from the circus. And it was this tiny little window. She had this moment with Scott where she was just really open up along the fence and he was touching on her and she was really seemed like super present with it all. And we left to go do something else and that moment had passed. And I don't think I had ever seen her like that after that with anybody. It was like this tiny little window.
But that could have also been that moment of celebration, but still have so much to recover from.
Sure.
Those wounds don't go away in a day. No. After 5 decades, more than that for her, of captive life, that chaos doesn't evaporate. There's a lot to work through. So in that moment, it was a moment of softness, but then the wall goes back up. Yeah, I was too vulnerable. But when she came to the sanctuary, she was light. Ramba was light. She was easy. She was very, very soft. She was very into the habitat. She was into exploring. She was into itchy, scratchy tree and the mud and the dirt and, just loving it. And she was such a joy. She had so much to celebrate. And during that time, Hana also wanted to celebrate. But she didn't want to do anything wrong.
Okay.
Well, it kind of came across that she didn't want the same thing that happened with Maya and Guida to happen with Ramba. Okay. So she wasn't going to just put herself in there and force her way into a friendship. But instead, it kind of actually went completely in the other direction.
And we had 2 beautiful grandma elephants, both smiling the biggest smiles. And I can say that without it being anthropomorphic, because you can see in the videos, these girls were radiant and they just had the brightest looks on the face. And neither wanted to make the first touch. They were physically in together. There was no separation between them. They're in the stall of the barn, which is not very large. And they would not touch one another. They wouldn't really belly bump. They wouldn't touch with tails. They wouldn't touch with feet. They wouldn't touch with noses. They wouldn't touch with heads. They just stood next to each other in the cheesiest, most beautiful grandma grins you can imagine. And
Hana didn't want to touch her because she didn't want to scare her off. And Ramba's like, why is she not touching me? What's wrong? Maybe I'm not supposed to touch her. So you just had these 2 elephants that just kind of kept looking at each other and standing right next to each other without touching.
And then they would accidentally bump bellies at one point and they just look, it's like, did you see she touched me? It's like, yes, I saw you guys touch. And that went on for like 3 days, I think.
Yeah, it that long. Oh my God, it just got funnier and funnier every day. We're like, really? You 2 still aren't going to touch each other. Okay, that's fine. Because they're both happy and, there's nothing wrong, but they're just not touching
all night together. Complete autonomy, complete liberty to do whatever they wanted with each other. And they would hang out together. They would walk side by side. They would follow each other in and out of the barn, but no touching.
Maya was the first one who touched her. Yeah, we brought Maya over to say hi because she was interested. So we opened up, let her come over and say hi, introduce them with a fence between them initially. Not really sure where Maya was going to be emotionally with the whole thing. Because again, she was still struggling, in some ways. And Maya being Maya, she steps up on the fence that's dividing the 2 of them, reaches her trunk over and touches her on the head. And Ramba was almost like, whoa. She's like, are we supposed to be touching? I don't think we're supposed to be touching. But they ended up, I think she was the one who touched her again after that when we opened up between them. She put her trunk over Ramba's head and Ramba kind of did the little head wiggle. And then I think it was after that I guess Hana decided it was finally okay to touch her. If Maya was going to do it, she...
I almost expected it to be like this big moment when they finally touched each other and like embraced each other's noses, but it wasn't. It was somewhat anticlimactic. It's like, I'm allowed to touch her and she doesn't run away.
Maybe it's an unwritten rule between grandma elephants, that I don't know. There's a certain etiquette that you have to keep. I don't know. Or is it because they've been, or Ramba hadn't been socialized for so long that she didn't know what to do? Or equally, Hana, she'd only been with you for 6 or 7 months and you'd been alone a lot as well. So was it maybe that they didn't know how to socialize with each other? what is permitted and not permitted?
Many times a new arrival is actually waiting for cues from those that have already been here.
Ah, okay.
And with your big sister, who is supposed to be showing the ropes, showing the ropes, saying "Don't touch," that was the cue that Ramba was going off of. So I don't think it was anything more than that. Just looking for guidance from those that have been here. But it seemed to be that she didn't want to make a wrong turn.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be too exuberant. So I'll just stand here with all the energy bundled up inside of me and not touch you.
But even afterwards, like, they were very cute. Hana was definitely more into the relationship initially than Ramba. They would go out and graze somewhere, and Ramba would wander off in a different direction, and Hana would call her, and Ramba would look at you. It's like, you're not going to go, are you? And she'd be like, nope, I'm going to stay right here.
I have a place to explore.
She's like, I don't need to go to my sister. It's fine. She can call all she wants. But she was actually really funny that way. It was like, ah. But loved being together. I mean, it wasn't that she didn't appreciate Hana. I mean, they would go swimming together. Hana would stand over her. I mean, they were very tactile. Poor Hana got more exercise with Ramba than she has at any other point, because Ramba wanted to see the entire sanctuary. She wanted to see every corner. She wanted to live it all. And Hana's like, oh my goodness, I have to keep up with this lady. It was very, very cute.
And you could see Hana make the decision sometimes. It's like Ramba comes back to the barn, and Hana's, they meet up for, a little while. And Ramba decides to head off again. And Hana starts to go, and she just looks at you and turns back. She's like, I'm not going this time.
I'm too exhausted.
She'll come back. Because Ramba, as old as she is, as old as she was incredibly agile.
Yeah.
How old was she?
She was near 60, or no,
I thought she was 64.
64 when she arrived.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was a little bitty. The smaller elephants tend to be have a little more oomph in there for some strange reason. But yeah, she was something.
Incredibly agile and fast.
Yes, unfortunately for Hana, she was very fast. Unfortunately for us, generally, if you go and put hay down in the habitat, you're keeping your distance from the elephants. You do it in a safe space where nobody is. It was so difficult to do anything like that with her, because the second she knew anybody was anywhere near her, she's like, I'm coming. It's like,
was she really that fast? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Even for a grandma.
Yeah. She had a lot of energy in that little body.
Yeah,
Oh,
we try to take video in the habitat sometimes, so you can see what they're doing when they're out exploring, and you couldn't do it with one person. You had to have two people.
Oh, seriously? Wow.
Yeah, because somebody just had to essentially be driving away the whole time, because she would just keep walking. So somebody had to take photos or take video, and the other person had to be driving away. I don't think we even shut the four-wheeler off when we would be out there with her, because she just wouldn't stay
stop
anywhere for any length of time. Yeah, she was great. Honestly, she was something else, that little lady. But Hana was definitely very, very, very into Ramba, and seemed incredibly appreciative of having a relationship that, even though maybe it wasn't 100% reciprocated, was at least like 85% reciprocated.
Yeah, it definitely was a beautiful friendship.
Oh, for sure.
And much closer. She was able to get closer to her than she had been to Maya and Guida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to watch that. Very short few months, but it was incredible.
And how beneficial it was for the both of them. I mean, because not only did clearly Hana wanted that relationship with someone, but it also opened Ramba up in a way that we had suspected. She would change a lot if she was in the company of other elephants, but it was still nice to see that how much it changed her. Just
the softness. We talked about Kat talked about it the one time that we saw it at the park safari after removing her from the circus. That little bit of open vulnerability, and then the wall went back up. But when she came here, that wall got torn down right away. She was incredibly much more vulnerable. And I shouldn't say incredibly vulnerable, much more vulnerable and much more open to expose herself.
And she was really good with Maya. Maya at that point was, I don't want to say she was rough, because I'm not saying physically she was rough, but she just, I don't know, maybe her personality was a little abrasive. She wasn't super soft. She wasn't super open. And, for some elephants, that could be a negative or cause conflict or socialization issues. But Ramba was just really receptive to whatever it was that was going on with Maya, and the two would go to take a bath, and, Ramba would be rubbing her head on Maya's ear and being all sweet and soft and affectionate. And she was just really good with the whole thing.
Yeah, Maya, going back to Maya a little bit and her journey, we talked about her at the circus and how historically she was the not so good elephant. And, it was the big personality hiding the insecure inner child. And after Guida had passed away, a little bit of that big personality came out, in terms of the force of the personality, the energy of the personality, but also being a little bit more sheltered, not exposing herself very much. So she had shifted back a little bit after Guida passed away, which would be expected, after a good friend like that passes, and it's still in the early stages of her journey of recovery.
Sure. Especially since, it was probably the first time in her life she allowed herself to be that vulnerable. And then when something like that happens, it ends up that you just open yourself up to be hurt more than you probably realized you could be hurt emotionally. So not surprising that she would close back up a little bit again. But
yeah.
And with Ramba, she would have moments where she'd expose herself a little bit and then she'd close herself back up. And sometimes when she'd close herself up, there was that little bit of abrasiveness that she had.
Yeah, but Rama never seemed to take it personally. She was always willing to put herself back out there every time she came over. She's like, okay, let's see how this goes. But she's just a cute little bitty.
Oh, we'll talk more about Ramba then and her entire journey of how you moved her from the circus to the place then where we actually picked up from when we started this podcast, about her being the first or the last circus elephant in Chile, and how she came into your care many, many years later. So before we end this week's episode, what are your plans for today? What have you still got to do? Is it elephant feeding time?
What have we got to do? We're actually planning to go back to the United States soon. And so we have a lot of loose ends to wrap up, getting a few things in place, a few little projects in place, and make sure everything's aligned with the team here before we go. So that's going to occupy the next 36 hours.
We still have to pack. Don't say anything. Yeah, Dr. Trish is going to come here. She's coming straight from Nepal, and she's going to babysit. Although the elephants are actually, I shouldn't say it out loud. Everybody's good. Our dogs are the ones that are kind of a mess right now. So she's going to come and make sure they're taken care of while we're gone. She'll take care of the elephants too, but the cats are good. The cats are always good. I shouldn't say that out loud either.
Tempting sanctuary.
No. Everything's going to be great. Okay, then I won't won't take up much more of your time, especially if you need to pack and sort out lots of stuff before you head on. I don't know. Do I say head on home? Because I think Brazil, after so many years, is your home as well.
No, I think for me, at least, New York will always be home. I think I spent too much of my life there, and my attitude is too much from there for me to think home is anywhere else. And my accent when I'm tired or...
You can take the girl out of New York, but you can't take the New York out of the girl. Is that something like that?
Oh, that was from My Fair Lady. Huh?
Yeah.
There's always a little bit in there. Yeah. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, have a lovely have a lovely holiday, or I don't know if it's probably a working holiday with you, or you're probably doing lots of things that you have to do as well, because obviously your organization is registered in the US. You are a 501c3, an American nonprofit, so I can imagine there's a lot of stuff that you need to do in America as well. And have fun packing. And
we
have
will
a lovely
have
time.
fun having amazing international vegan food at our fingertips. We are like already talking about Thai food, Indian food. I'm going to get a curry almost as soon as we get there. So yeah, even though there is a lot of work that has to be done, the goal is always to gain like 10 pounds when we go home. So or at least
Sounds
that's
like a
my
good
goal
plan.
every time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, sort of if you want to have a Thai takeaway at midnight, you can get the Thai takeaway at midnight, because where you guys are, there isn't even a Thai
Absolutely.
takeaway, regardless whether noon or midnight, there is just no Thai takeaway. So yeah, enjoy and take care. And then we'll
You
catch
too,
up
Nadia.
for our next recordings then.
Very good. Thanks again, Nadia. It's always a pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure's on my side. Okay, bye.
Bye.
That's all for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do subscribe and rate our podcast. Until we meet up in 2 weeks' time, take care.